Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Houselights, specifically House of Tim Burton. Specifically, on top of that, 90s Burton. I am so utterly excited to be talking about 90s Tim Burton. The 90s Tim Burton is near and dear to my heart. And this is, and I couldn't ask for better co-hosts. And those people are Dr. Sci-Fi, Darren Moser, and Kessel Junkie himself, John Mills. John, how are you doing?
I'm really interested to discuss this movie because I haven't revisited it in years. And Edward Scissorhands, I have some very specific memories tied to it. And so it's going to be, if 90s Tim Burton is near and dear to your heart, we're about to test our friendship, Tristan. So let's buckle up. Let's buckle up.
Man, so much is writing on this. Darren, do you have an equally ominous phrase about our friendship, and maybe about you want to go after maybe my wife or something? I don't know, like what?
Just as long as you refer to me as the inventor for the entirety of this recording, then I'm good. But no, I mean, I'm looking forward to all these discussions. I mean, I think he did like 5 films in the 90s. Like that's quite a bit. I mean, that's almost John Hughes levels of cranking out these stories. And I'm excited though, because I think we're going to also be able to focus again on the change over the span of those films. Sometimes when we're only looking at like a slice of a director, it's harder to see. Well, I mean, we just did Proyas, which was only 2, which is kind of hard to get some more. We need more data points, guys, to look at these.
Very much so.
But I think we're going to get it with Burton. I mean, I don't think there's a more stylized name in Hollywood, at least in the 90s. And so we'll get there.
So just as an overview, here's what you're going to be hearing from us for the next few weeks. So tonight, as you know, is Edward Scissorhands. In 92, we have Batman Returns. 94, Ed Wood. 96, Mars Attacks. And 99, Sleepy Hollow. Mm-hmm. Now, it's so weird because I know it's 9 years difference, but there's you get a very different director from Edward Scissorhands to Sleepy Hollow, which is exactly, Darren, what you're talking about. And so I cannot wait to showcase this cross section of a man who's been working for many decades. So Darren, where were you when you first saw this film? Paint me a word picture.
Well, that word picture is going to be in black and very dark gray, lots of stripes, and some sharp scissors, but
maybe asymmetry.
Yeah, a lot of asymmetry. Yeah. Well, with this also falls into the category of films that I probably first saw like on television, like it was on air or something like that. I'm pretty sure I didn't see this in theater. I'm not from the same generation as John, which has probably seen a lot more 90s films in theaters for the first time.
Yes, indeed.
Which is the nicest way I can say that.
Saw a lot of them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I probably had commercial, breaks and maybe even a little bit of time editing. But yeah, this feels like something I would have just caught on air, maybe at my grandma's house, maybe just when something's on. Or maybe actually, thinking back, this was probably a Blockbuster Video. This was probably a rental of that striking cover, of his profile and the scissors, and all the baby goths like love this movie. It was like, this is my jam, and this is we're gonna quote it and we're gonna talk about it, and the only thing that
this is a hot topic, if you will.
Yes. Well, I was talking to my friend Spencer, and he said,
"Oh no."
Okay, bad puns aside, though, but no, yeah, I remember seeing it though, probably more in like the mid 90s, a few years after the fact, but I mean, you open up on Vincent Price, and you're like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. Like you've captivated my attention. He doesn't. I don't think he talks in, but it's enough just to have him there, Mr. Thriller himself, and early Johnny Depp as well on his career. So yeah, this was definitely a blockbuster. That Friday night, like, what are we going to get? You spend like an hour just walking around trying to just get some entertainment.
Yeah.
John, can you give me a concise history of seeing this film for the first time? Maybe a little less Dickens, more short story, if you will. Give me a tone poem.
I feel a little attacked here, but
you feel attacked.
No,
I feel attacked. He's telling me I took too long.
No, John gets it.
Nope. Yeah, I do. All right. So yes, I'm older than you two young pups, and so this was a delightful trip to Wheaton Plaza 11 in Wheaton, Maryland, where none of the cool kids hung out.
Wait. But your theater had 11 screens. Like, it feels like a 10 plus 1. Like, we're gonna have a bonus screen in the back.
All of the screens, like, I can recreate. I went to Wheaton Plaza 11 all the time, and compared to the screens that like you get with like Dolby Cinema, Arama,
so this was like bed sheets, and
basically.
Okay.
This was the small. They basically took something that should have had 5 theaters and they made it into 11. And it was like, we're back then. You're just too, there was no home video like competition with that.
Yeah, there's no option,
right? So. We go as a group. My girlfriend was there. Believe it or not, I did have a girlfriend at the time. And I was the typical whiny, very, very overly dramatic teenager sort. And I took to this movie so much because, like, I mean, I was at the time, like, I had hair and, like, I was bordering on that, like, quasi emo. I wasn't emo, but I was like that.
Are you saying you like the haircut scenes? Is that what you're saying?
Very much. That's 5 stars is the haircut scenes. I miss those days. But no, seriously, like, I was the kid. I was the moody kid that everybody knew. I had like the black leather jacket and everything. And so, like, this movie, quote unquote, spoke to me at the time. And there's a tiny.
Did you wear a trench coat in high school, John? Did you?
No,
wear a trench
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't. I couldn't pull off trench coats. But it was one of those things where I still remember the night that I saw it. I still remember I was such a moody little jerk, and just it's one of those things where I come back to this movie and I remember that evening, and I don't like remembering that evening. I'm like, why do I remember this evening? I don't want to remember that I was like mean to people for no reason, and it was just like, so it's tied together, and that's why I should be class president, but nobody listened.
So when you think of this movie, you think about the person you were.
Correct.
When you first watched it.
Abso-freaking-lutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. And that's the thing, is this was directed by the director of Batman. There was no chance all of my friends weren't hopping in whoever could drive at the time, getting in that car and going down as a group. This is the director of Batman. And it was one of those things where, in a sense, I think that Tim Burton spoke a language that certain kids could really understand when they were, in high school and stuff like that. And I just think the big question is whether it ages well, because I think a truly great work can grow with you as opposed to stay rooted to the time that it was targeted for, if that makes any sense. What about you, Tristan? When was the first time you ran across this little gem?
I'm kind of like Darren, where I didn't see this in the theater because I was 4. But I
got him.
And but yeah,
Mr. Movie Theater Man, please, 1 ticket for Edward Scissorhands.
I like, speaking of trench coats, like me and another kid in a trench coat trying to get in. No, I have no direct memory of the exact first time. Like, it wasn't like lightning struck and I was just like, oh my God. But John, I very much was that kid in high school who wore all black, wasn't emo, but was super moody, thought he was way deeper than he was, like that kind of thing. Like, oh yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Don't feel too terribly bad, because you're not alone. But no, with Edward Scissorhands, it wasn't. I wasn't so much like, oh my god, it's Tim Burton, I love this. It was just like, oh, what an oddity. Like I remember watching it with my mom on TV, and she kept asking so many questions. Like she wouldn't just accept the premise. And I remember being really irritated because she just wouldn't accept the premise. So like, why did he wait to do his hands last? Like, why didn't he do that first? Like he can give him a head, but he can't give him hands. And I'm like, come on, mom, just go with it. And
I have a very simple explanation for that, though.
What is that?
Well, we see him instructing Edward in how to be a real person. He wasn't ready for that discussion yet. He was saving the hands for last.
But then I remember like, oh my gosh, it was okay. I started doing a little research on this, and I saw that Tom Cruise was in conversation to be Edward.
Oh,
and he kept asking all of those questions because the Tom Cruise of today is much like he was in the 80s, and he was just like, he's like, well, how did he survive without eating for so long? How does he go to the bathroom? Like how does he do all this? And like Tim Burton said, like he just kept asking odd questions, and it was just so funny that he just considered those odd questions,
right?
But yeah, like that's the thing with this movie is that either you accept the premise or you don't. Either you accept the metaphor or you don't. Because if you nitpick it, then it's not going to work. And longtime listeners know that I've told this story many times, and I'll tell it many times more. But it's a great microcosm of what's wrong in America and with American moviegoers. Is that my wife and I were leaving Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and we were walking. And we were both discussing it. Like we were both like, like she was full on crying. I had man tears, and we were walking and we were talking about what we liked, and we heard this group of people behind us. They were younger than us, and one person's like, "Oh, I loved it. Yeah, this was really great. I really like this part. One guy, and one person said like, "Well, what did you think, so and so?" And they're like, "I didn't like it." Well, why didn't you like it? Well, they didn't explain why he was aging backwards. And I almost stopped in the mall and turned around and smacked him. I'm like, really? You just watched this beautiful piece of cinema with a moving story and romance, and you're just like, like, why don't we get the CSI team on it? And so, anyway, long story short, that's kind of how I feel about Edward Scissorhands. Either you accept the premise or you don't. Darren, did you have a hard time accepting the premise? Like, was your you're a really technical guy, did you you build things? You build a lot of great things. So, as an inventor yourself, did you feel like you were like, oh, why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? Or did you just go with it?
Because I classify him as like automata, like the old, writing desk where it's all gears and clockwork. Like we never see his inside, but I don't see it as, people are like, yeah, like, well, how does he go to the bathroom? Or how does he eat? Like he doesn't eat, and he doesn't go, like he's not human. He just looks human. And if you can put him in that category, then a lot of those questions fall away. But there's also, heck, we're in this, what's the color scheme? Pastel, just all these bright,
pastel.
Pastel colors with a McMansion, Frankenstein's monster mansion up on a hill. Like it's, it's not, it feels like you're in a storybook. It does not feel real. But John is disagreeing.
Oh, no. It absolutely is. I think that you see very much Burton's origins as an animator in this. Like there is no question this movie is Burton saying after Batman, I've got the clout. I can make any movie I want to. This is what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
This is the type of thing that I like to do.
That's exactly what it is.
You look at Beetlejuice, Batman, and then Edward Scissorhands, you play those three back together, back to back, and you say, well, which ones are alike and which one is not like the others? And it's like, well, Batman sure seems to be a little out of character for this guy. Like this is a little bit different. You can see aspects of it in there, but it's very much that big tentpole blockbuster sort of thing.
It's not his property.
Right. Whereas, you look at Beetlejuice, you look at this, it's very personal types of stories, very unique aesthetic attached to them, and very animation thinking with everything. It just matters that it looks cool. But I think that a lot of times, just to speak to your point about, oh well, you got that big scary mansion off to the side while all of these different houses are, these more modern houses are built. I grew up in an area that was exurbs, and there were plenty of places where it was like, those old family houses that hadn't been torn down yet, and the neighborhoods all like butted right up against them. But the family had been a holdout, so there's this little like 1 acre carve out. But like there was one behind my elementary school where it was like everybody was like, who lives in that place? And it's like, nobody lives in that place. It's haunted, because it was completely out of character for everything else around it. And you could tell it had all of this age to it. And I think that's, I think that Burton, whether it's intentional or not, there's echoes of Poltergeist to it, of how the modern world is sort of like encroaching on this more charming, more unique and individualistic life that used to be. And you have the cookie cutter coming in and starting to push against it and threaten it. And so, it's not the most subtle of movies, but I think that's one of the points that actually works in its favor, in terms of its structure.
When I watched this a couple nights ago, it was the first time I've seen it in a very long time. I've seen it more than once because I am such a 90s Burton fan, and I love the twisted nature that he brings. I love his visual style, at least of this age. And one thing that really kind of struck me once I watched it when I was a little older, I was just like, oh, he's Edward. Like Burton is Edward. Like like clearly this is how it is. I mean, like I know I probably should have gotten that from day one, but it just kind of hit me like a lightning bolt. Like being a Burton fan now and looking back, and I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, I'm sure this is how he felt growing up. And then when I did a little bit of research on the film, I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's him growing up in Burbank, and he's the goth kid with the messed up hair, and can't make friendships or can't keep friendships. And we have the uniformity of suburbia. Everybody leaves at the same time. Everybody plays golf at the same time. Pastel houses and everything like that. And you have that weird kid who everyone looks at and stares at. And some people have said that this movie is also a metaphor for people on the spectrum, where Edward is a representation of people on the spectrum, or people with disabilities, or people who have Asperger's, or things like that. And because if you look at how the film is laid out, you have like everybody sees him as an oddity, and the world is clearly not built for him. And I think that's one thing that like is a big push with autism awareness right now, is that like, let's not try to change people with autism, but let's see if we can change the world around them. And that's very much the kind of the focus of the picture, was how nothing worked for Edward. He had to change his life in order to fit that. How do you guys feel about that? Like, John, how do you feel about those metaphors, or do you see other metaphors going on in this picture?
I think that, like any piece of art, whether you love it or don't love it or anything like that, you can transport reads onto it, because art should always work in a universal way. I honestly don't believe that it would ever have been Burton's intent to do anything more personal than what's there, which is growing up as the more outcast type of kid who's like, I kind of just want to fit in, but just doesn't know how. And like the whole thing is about eventually just coming to understand that you're just not going to fit in. And you got to, you're going to be faced with a point at some point where, I mean, does anybody ever really fit in? Like that sort of thing. And it's like, so I don't think that there's anything beyond that. Not saying that there needs to be, or there shouldn't be, or that read doesn't work on it. I don't see the intent behind it there. I see it very much as that very personal movie that can speak to any kid who doesn't feel like they fit in, who feels like they operate differently. And I don't think you need to be on the spectrum. I don't think you need to be any sort of classification to relate to that feeling of, well, why don't I fit into the world? Why am I different than everybody else? And it's and then that reflection on, why is the world so similar? Why is everybody fitting into this mold? Why did they make that choice? What's the story behind it? And I think that's one of the things also that I think lends itself to the more animator origins of Burton, is the fact that it's not terribly concerned with the backstories of everybody around. I would mirror it back and say that maybe one of the flaws of a movie like this is that it makes a presumption that all of those people didn't have to make that choice at some point and decide who they were going to be. I mean, you still have the neighbor who's the outcast, the quote unquote religious weirdo, right? Who, everybody's like, oh, that person's weird, but okay, they're in the neighborhood, but they don't go out of their way to make her feel good or special or anything like that. So there's an interesting sort of, if you really wanted to break it down and peel apart the layers, it's like, well, Edward is regarded as a good kind of special, and she's the bad kind of special. And so we'll let her have her little hovel here, but we're never going to let her really feel like she belongs to the group. And so, I would be more interested in peeling that one apart and seeing how those two story elements play against each other.
Now, Darren, there was a lot of unique performances in here. There's a lot of unique characters, and there's a lot of different types of people. We got the weirdo recluse, we got the cheerleader, we have the guardian angel Avon lady. We got your stereotypical sitcom dad. We got the horny neighbor. Like, what? Looking back on it now, like as a person who's experienced more life, is there a characterization that sticks out to you as more real, or are they all just kind of archetypes and caricatures?
Yeah, it's interesting with the different characters. I mean, I would say I always liked, Peg, she's kind of basically the lead, and she does the inciting incident and is guiding kind of like everything that happens is because of her in starting it all, at least. And yeah, but it's interesting because it's not Verhoeven level, Starship Trooper. I'm definitely making an allegory here. It's like, no, these are also just characters. They're just people. We're not trying to get that deep into it, but yeah, it's also interesting because, of a lot of their choices, like, it's a tragedy for Edward. Like, towards the end, like, he's, nobody's believing him. He like they say, like, he can't function in this society because he doesn't have the skills to make his own decisions and to, stand his own ground. So that's why I liked Kim the most, because she kind of is that surrogate mother to him, and, is trying to protect him, trying to write the things she's put into play. And again, Vincent Price. I love Vincent Price. Like, I want more Vincent Price. Why did he have to die in the first 5 minutes of the
speaking of Peg, Diane Wiest is not a person who is in enough conversations today. She had a lot of clout in the 80s and in the early 90s and everything like that, but she kind of fell off of the wayside in conversations. I mean, she did less, of course, but I think she's a powerhouse. I think she is everything that she's in. I love her in. And apparently, she was the first person to sign on to the movie. She was the first person to read the script. She loved it. She loved the idea. She loved everything about it. And because she signed on, other people started signing on, where they're like, oh, well, if Diane Wiest is a part of this, then this movie must be worthwhile. And this is, of course, like, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on. Like, this is, of course, the movie where Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder fell in love, and Depp became a wino forever. But John, with the characterization of Edward Scissorhands, how do you feel this young kid from 21 Jump Street did? Like, did he pull it off? Was he too weird? Was he too removed? Was he too quiet? Like, what do you think about his performance?
No, yeah, he pulled it off. This is the moment, and I remember it as the moment where suddenly everybody, oh well, Johnny Depp's a serious actor. Seriously, he crosses over into that realm of, oh, he can do these unique characters. You look around the same relative time frame. Gary Oldman plays Dracula and all the makeup and the butt hairdo. And, oh, he's a serious actor now. So people love somebody who puts on a good bit of makeup and a really unique personality. But he did a tremendous job because of the fact that he, and yes, he studied Charlie Chaplin to help him learn how to do it and everything. But conveying with as little dialogue as possible. He conveys everything with his face, even though he's got the makeup on. He's got that hangdog expression down, and you can see the emotion that's going on in his eyes and in his body movements. And I've always thought that one of the most fun scenes to watch is him when Kim comes home. He's laying in the bed and he doesn't know what to do. And then she freaks out and he freaks out and she runs out. And then when he comes out, he's just sort of like walking away, just like trying to hide. And then Alan Arkin has to come in and like grab him and dry him off in the bathroom and everything like that.
That's my hands down favorite part of the movie.
I
like
think
when
it's
he
great.
walks out, it's just genius.
Yeah. And and you can even see a little bit of that Charlie Chaplin study in his movements there. And I do. I think that Depp really, really shined in this. Is there anybody that disagrees with that?
I don't think on this panel.
No.
Yeah, and even though it didn't stun people, not stun, but take people, people weren't as enamored of it. Anthony Michael Hall broke out of a mold with this.
Yeah,
when
he showed up. He was always the nerd,
right? And he showed up, and everybody was like, "Who? What? Wait, what happened to him?" And the funny story is, he was apparently there was a different role that he was getting in shape for, where he wanted to play a football player, and it basically just paid off with him and the role he had in this. And it's like, oh, okay, that's a nice confluence of events right there.
Yeah, I did notice that he was a great deal bigger than the last time I saw him before that, and that makes a lot of sense. So, Darren, what do you think about the characterization of Edward? Like, what did you specifically think about the physicality of it, and like how the scissors worked, and his suit and everything like that? Like, what did you think about the look, the movement, everything like that?
Well, yeah, and it's an incredible role because you're very captivated by it. Because not only is there a lot going on with like the buckles and the black and again just the hands, it's the fact that he like barely talks. So
I think he had like 169 words.
Yeah,
in the entire film.
And so he's doing a ton of emoting and like you guys were saying, like comedic timing, and just it's literally a study in saying things without saying things, because we all, I think all of us feel like we understand what he's feeling the entire time. It's not like it's under a veil or anything, but it's only coming through in these reactions, in these moments. He's got makeup on his face. He does a lot with his eyebrows, a lot with the eyes and the focus of the face. But I think, we were talking a moment ago about like, does anybody feel that Depp didn't bring it in this movie? And it's like, he's in almost every scene. Like this is his movie. It's completely him. And it's like, when we look back at it, it's almost like, oh yeah, like, of course, like there's no doubt, because it's just ingrained as this performance that, really carries it. And yeah, we get a lot more of that as the decades progress, especially when Burton and Depp pair up again and again. and again, we get a lot of amazing performances from him. It's very, almost very Jack Sparrow-ish of like doing things with motion, doing things with eyes, and just if Edward walks into a room, you can feel like what this character is supposed to be like right away. You're not like, oh, is this going to be the good guy? Is this the bad guy? Is this, the child or the adult? Like, no, it all comes out right away.
Yeah, as somebody I think it's not enough credit. To your point earlier, Tristan, Diane Wiest, absolutely. I think she's it's kind of a shame. She's not a name that's as remembered as it should be. Like, it doesn't come up in conversation enough. She did win an Academy Award at one point, actually. But the person I think that gets overlooked a lot in this is actually Alan Arkin, who I think plays a very, and this is probably the first time I've watched this since I've become a dad, and I have teenagers in the house. And Alan Arkin, he's a bit more sympathetic than I remember him. Especially when he goes down to the basement and he's like, it's lemonade. And he's just, he's just hiding out. He's talking. Finally, there's somebody in the house that can listen to him and talk about it. It's like, I don't know what's going on. They get to be teenagers and everything's going on now. And I don't understand what's happening. He doesn't
with glands.
Right. He doesn't want Edward to talk or understand. He just wants Edward to listen. And so Edward is a really welcome part in his life because Edward doesn't have anything to bounce back at him. Edward's not even like one of the guys he plays poker with or goes out bowling with or anything like that. Edward's a blank slate. He can just talk to him like a therapist. And it's like, that's a really interesting sort of dynamic that gets created there. And Alan Arkin is you look through his entire career and it's just nothing but really understated comic roles and darkly comic roles, and even just beautifully sympathetic, dramatic roles like when he plays the salesman in Glengarry Glen Ross. And Arkins is really good at playing that very down to earth, believable guy, that's very sympathetic guy. And so I think Arkin gets overlooked in this a fair amount. But when you deal with a movie like this, where there's so much put into the visual flair and Johnny Depp's performance and the makeup and the premise and everything like that, that's how actors like Arkin or any of the other supporting cast, they become the unsung heroes because they're the ones supporting the zaniness. Because without that underlying layer of believable reality to it, all of that stuff just collapses under its own weight.
When Arkin got the script, he agreed to do it, but he's like, I had no idea what was going on. Like he said it was very confusing, but until he got on set, until he saw the sets and he saw the color schemes and he saw Edward and he saw the mansion and everything like that. He's like, oh, okay. I get it now. And that's when he was thoroughly impressed with Burton's vision and his direction. And I thought that was pretty intriguing. And one thing I didn't really get until I was older, and especially not when I was younger, was like when I was watching, I was just like, oh my gosh, Kim and Edward, they make such a cute couple. They're so in love. It's beautiful. And then when I'm watching it now and I see Kim hug and kiss Edward and say, I love you. And then she's crying. I'm like, do you? Like, do you really? But then again, you gotta put yourself in the minds of children, and that's what Kim is. Kim is a child, and so is Edward. Darren, what do you think about the romance between Edward and Kim? Does it still hold up? Is it just a thing that you have to do because it's a movie? How do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, in one thing, Edward does not have the emotional maturity to have a relationship like that at all. So it's all on Kim. And like you said, she is barely there as well. She's a teenager. She's, going through all these hormones and emotions and changes and this craziness. So, and then because of the way the story is told in the flashback, it's like, and then I never saw him again. It's like, so you loved him, but you you never walk down the end of the road to the giant house that he's been in the whole time. Well, then he remembers me young. It's like, okay, sure. I don't know. It's just it.
Oh no, that's a very fair comment. And I think that, again, that's one of those things where I really can't shake the feeling. And I know I keep coming back to this point. This really would have worked best as an animated film, as an animated short, if you will. It has those story beats that you expect from a fairy tale. But when you transport that to live action, it's a little bit of a harder sell, and you got to keep it so fast and so just make it move so quickly, because once I think that the shortcoming that we're getting at from my perspective is that once you transport it to this happened in a real world, even though it's a fairy tale retelling of a grandmother talking to her daughter about a past love, all of that stuff. Once you transport it to this, well, this is a real-ish world. The story burden should there should be more of it shifted to Kim so that relationship does sell, where Edward's presence winds up, we spend more time focused on her awakening to real humanity as opposed to just being the football player's girlfriend, and now she loves Edward because he's different. And that's the transition that doesn't get pulled off. It's the same thing we'd be watching if he just restructured the script in such a way that it gave Kim more focus, bring her into the story a little bit earlier, and have it become something where Edward makes her realize this guy's a jackass. What are you doing with him? And that's an old story trope too. Yeah. But it's like going and seeing a magician. I might have seen 100 magicians do the saw the woman in half trick through my life, right? But there are certain.
You go to a lot of magic shows, John.
Nonstop, actually, every weekend. No, but like there are certain rules with how you do certain tricks. You can't suddenly change things. You can't take a shortcut. Otherwise, you sit there and you go, oh, well, yeah, I mean, of course I know how the trick ends, but you gotta lie to me a little bit better than this for me to buy along.
You gotta wave your hands around a little bit. You gotta have a sexy assistant pull out the trick. Yeah, I get that.
Well, and like I think that's saying, really spot on, John.
Thanks.
We're all just agreeing with John. He's so amazing. But yeah, it's like I would have liked more of Kim and Edward if it had been that kind of a story. But again, because Edward has no emotional intelligence, like you're saying, we want Kim to realize that, her boyfriend's a jerk. But Edward isn't going to tell her. She literally has to just discover it because she's the only half of that relationship that's actually doing anything. Mm-hmm. And, that would have been really cool if, we said he had 190 lines or something, but if maybe he only talked with Kim, he would talk to others, but when they were together, he really opened up and was much more, right. It kind of reminded me of that film Warm Bodies. I don't know if you guys ever saw that.
I haven't seen that.
It's kind of like a zombie comedy, and it's basically like zombies can love their way back into humanity kind of thing. But anyway, there's a zombie is one of the lead guys, and he's just walking around like a zombie, but then he falls in love with this girl, and when he's with her, he actually becomes more human and coherent. A warm, more coherent, more articulate. So something like that, where Edward is, still asking questions, what's this, maybe have a musical number, but do that with Kim. Yeah.
To interject, this was originally written as a musical.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yes. This
would have worked better.
But what? Edward would say he doesn't talk.
I do. No, I do. I think it would have worked better. I think that very much, and Darren, you made the subtle reference right there. What do you have come out? Henry Selick directs it, but in the 90s, you have Nightmare Before Christmas, which is very similar in a lot of ways and a musical. and animated, and look at how much better that works. So that is one of those things where I have a friend and he constantly hits on the idea that Tim Burton's mistake, if you will, over the course of his career was lessening Henry Selick's influence on his work, working too independently of him. I don't know whether that's true or not, but you look at Henry Selick taking his idea and making it an animated musical, and Nightmare Before Christmas is rightly regarded as just a freaking masterpiece.
True.
And I see those elements here. I see everything here as seeds for what becomes that later.
Well, and like you said, animation, I mean, whether it's, stop motion or pen and paper, the ability to really craft the world and skew the line and, because you're doubling down. Like I could, if you can imagine a pitch meeting where Tim Burton wants to tell this story and it's like company A is going to let him do it live action, company B is going to let him do it animated. And for some reason he chooses he has to choose the live action one. It feels like he's limited. Like to really tell the story he wants to tell, I think animated would have been the better choice to really just articulate that. Because, with live action, you have practical limitations. You have, sets and I mean, yes, it's very stylized in the film, with the colors and stuff. But, you're not building the entire world, just everything in front of the camera.
But at the same time, I think it's a very good impulse that Burton has. I mean, we talked about Coppola. We had House of Coppola before this, and you look at a very similar sort of thing where Coppola makes the obligatory studio block, but make Godfather Part 3 for us. All right, fine. And you look at it and you go, yeah, it's, when you watch the recut, I should say, you watch the recut and you say, yeah, it's good, but it's not great, but it's, it's got all of the pieces there and, but his heart really belongs somewhere else. And then you have him just do this really stylized Dracula movie. And you see a similar sort of thing with Burton, where it's like, make us a blockbuster. Okay, fine. I'll sacrifice a little bit of my artistic integrity for the sake of getting the clout. And then I'm going to make this really stylized, more personal, artistic thing.
You get that a lot with directors. I mean, heck, we have, Edward's, Batman, get lots of clout, make Edward Scissorhands. I'm not saying good or bad. I'm just saying like blockbuster that pays for the next one. And you have Edwards, and then you have Batman Returns, and then you have Ed Wood. And then you have, and then you slide down the slope. But but there's a lot of directors that are like that, where you have tent pole and then maybe one or two. I can do what I want because I did Godfather 3.
And that's one of the things that I think that we're losing a lot in the modern era of blockbuster filmmaking is one of the things that arguably cost Colin Trevorrow the job on episode 9. Besides the fact that he had artistic differences, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But he made Book of Henry, which a lot of people hated. But he made Jurassic World, and then he was like, I want to make something really weird, and that's just for me. Right. And the movie bombs. Edward Scissorhands did not bomb, so it's not one-to-one there. But I really think the studio system needs to just sort of like relax its sphincter a little bit and let directors do this sort of thing where it's like, okay, you gave us $1 billion blockbuster. Here's $100 million, make something. We'll use it as a tax write-off or whatever. Get it out of your system and then come back for
$100 million. That's going to pay for like the sets, John. Like what year? Oh, I guess in the 90s. Yeah. But I mean, nowadays with the nowadays with the volume, sure. You could make it. That's true.
You could make it for $100 million.
That reminds me of, again, it's not a one-to-one, but that kind of conversation reminds me of a story. I was once this was years ago. I was talking with a friend of mine, and she was working at a movie theater, and she was talking about Eddie Murphy, and the Oscars the Oscars just happened, and she said, some people think that Eddie Murphy didn't win the Oscar for Dreamgirls because he immediately came out with Norbit. And I'm okay with that because I believe that kind of behavior needs to be punished.
Wow.
I just thought that was hilarious.
Norbit wasn't good. I will say that much. I did see Norbit. Wasn't particularly good. But that's a little harsh. It's a little harsh.
Okay, so one thing I think we're kind of getting into the criticism area of it. I think we've all talked about how the characterization is all fantastic. The cast is amazing. The sets, the metaphor, the feeling of it is all top notch. But obviously there's some things that don't work or could have worked better if done this way. Like, like the teenage romance didn't quite work when she professes her undying love at the end. And, like, would this have been better if it was animated and or a musical? Does it need some restructuring? One thing that always really bothered me, and even as an adult man, I still fast forward. I fast forward every single time that she's on screen, and that's Joyce. I can't stand Joyce. And that scene in the salon,
yep,
I can't watch that.
Yeah.
I physically can't.
I knew what you were going to
it.
say before you even started saying it.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think that the thing with Joyce is one of those things that is so. It's so standard. It's so expected. It's like, oh, the frustrated housewife who everybody knows is cheating on her husband. It's even by this point, it was such a tired sort of story point where it's just not particularly interesting. And I don't think it's a funny thing. I don't think that infidelity is good played for humor. Right. And it's
even if she wasn't married, though, like, take the infidelity out of it. It's not interesting. It's not funny. This guy has the mind of a child. And also, like, how horny do you have to be horny for Edward Scissorhands? Like, you're an adult woman.
Yeah.
And you orgasm at him touching your hair. Like, I just, it's so uncomfortable and I can't believe I'm about to say this, but unrealistic. And it's not funny.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's more of a holdover of that 70s and 80s sort of mindset that's going out of vogue by the time this movie comes out, where the over the top sexual humor was very much in favor. And so I think it's one of those fading echoes sort of thing. I think it just doesn't play well. I think that there is a way you can make Joyce sympathetic, put her in a loveless situation where she's just, you have something more interesting where it really is a cry for help from her.
Yeah.
Where, and so it becomes a more interesting thing because it's not like this movie shies away from the drama when it needs it. So I mean, I'm agreeing with you that it doesn't work particularly well. And I think that it's never worked particularly well. And I think that it's story time that takes away from time that could be devoted to Kim and Edward having a little more nuance to what's going on with them. I think that's probably what gets at all of us about that most is you recognize it as wasted screen time because it doesn't really further the story.
Absolutely. It's wasted screen time that could have been spent with Kim and Edward. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, 100%. I feel like you and Carrie Fisher should have done punch up on this script.
Well, Carrie and I, we could never really get together in time. And then, things go. And it's one of my great regrets is that I never returned that last phone call. I mean, I just had so much going on, but we could have done great things. Yeah.
All right. I think we've all kind of, we could talk. There's so much more we haven't talked about.
One thing I have to insert. I'm sorry. Is that okay? Can I just?
Yes, of course. I mean, no. I love being interrupted. It's fine.
Good.
It's fine.
See, thank you. I appreciate that. No, I've got to say that I feel like it's unfair, but I cannot help but punish my opinion of Danny Elfman because of this movie. Because once he does this score, it's almost like he never escapes it. It happens.
He said that this is his favorite score.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That's fine. I think the score was great the first time I heard it. It wasn't great the 10th time I heard it. And it really gets under my skin over time where it's like, oh, that sounds like Edward Scissorhands. Okay. All right. It sounds like Edward Scissorhands. Sure thing. Like I gave him a big pass, but man, like the next one we talk about, this will come up again.
I mean, you almost get that a little bit in a different way, but like with John Williams, like there's certain trumpet chords and things like that, like Raiders, Harry Potter, Home Alone. Like, and again, there's a reason that when we hear a Williams score, we're like, oh, that's a Williams score. Like we can tell, but I think I picking up what you're saying, John. With this, it's like they're not moving the needle enough between each one. It's very, very indicative of Edwards, which is great. It started it, but it didn't finish it.
Yeah.
We're going to have a lot of time in the future to talk about the Burton, Depp, Elfman combo.
Oh my, yes.
And what works and what doesn't. So, Darren, I am aching, positively aching to find out.
Why are you quoting the scene you hate? Like, geez, geez, Tristan. Okay, I knocked this one down a little bit. It almost is because I feel like I've been on a steady stream of like threes for a long time that I was trying to kind of reevaluate. Like, a 1 and a 2 is not absolutely. I mean, you guys have scarred me from the very beginning. It's like when I'm giving a 2 on something, but no, I'm giving. I'm going to give Edward a 2. It's jeez, guys. But
Terminator, now this. Oh my gosh.
I've given other 2s. There's Rainmaker. You weren't here for that, but we both
that's
gave
true.
it a 2.
He wasn't. Yeah, that's true.
You probably would have given it a 2 as well, but
no. We agreed he'd have given it a 5.
But no, it's again. The reason we're picking Burton is he's got a masterful slate of work, and there's some great things. But I'm not a huge Edward Scissorhands fan. It's not like I want to watch this over and over. I hadn't, like, just like you, Tristan, I hadn't watched this in decades, and it's I don't own it in my collection, or there's many other pieces of Burton's work that I relate to much more than this. And especially now that we've been talking, I do think it would have been I've seen Burton do better, and I wish that this was in that better camp, is what it kind of comes down to. Like, not knocking it totally, but, and this movie obviously made money, but it could have been amazing. Like, it's such a strong concept that, maybe if this had come around later in his career, after he had a little more time and polish and,
like 2002.
Yeah, like early aughts and something like that. He's had his tent pole the year before, and now he can make the epic Edward Scissorhand piece. And unfortunately, you probably wouldn't have Mr. Vincent Price in that regard. So I strike it all. It needs to be in this decade to keep him. But yeah, so I'm giving it a 2.
I think obviously we need to have either Edward Scissorhands Awakens or Edward Scissorhands Resurrection
returns.
Yeah, to really ride the wave of let's
Edward attacks with an exclamation point.
Again.
Yes.
John.
Yes. Well, I will actually wind up pulling a quote from Roger Ebert at the time, who said that Burton has not yet found the storytelling and character building strength to go along with his pictorial flair. I think that really sums up Edward Scissorhands, where there are a lot of really interesting things going on here. There are definitely things that do work. I think Depp really is great in the role. I think that there is a terrific supporting cast around him, but I think that this movie suffers from needing another rewrite. And tighter focus, and again, would have worked better animated or as a musical or something like that. And I think that its total runtime, if you're going to be an hour and 45 with this, Kim definitely needs more screen time and needs more nuance. And if she's not going to get that nuance and focus, this needs to be an hour and 30 minutes, because you just got to get me out the door before I say, wait a minute. That's basically it. So I'm going to wind up just a little bit kinder than Darren, give it a 2.5, because there's good stuff here, but it's just not put together the way it should be.
I had no idea I was going to have the highest rating for Edward Scissorhands. I'm giving it 3.5 because I feel like what it gets right is phenomenal. And it's such a huge presence in our nerd culture and even in pop culture. I feel like it solidified itself so well. So I feel like
go put your jacket on, put that trench coat on, Tristan. Go walk back out into the rain, hands in pockets. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I feel like if this just came out, like if this was the first time if this was just made and I was watching it now at this age, I would be much harsher. But it's so hard for me to separate it from the decades of nostalgia and the decades of nerds talking about it, about emo kids talking about it, and seeing all the merchandise at Hot Topic and everything like that. So it's so hard to separate that, and I can't argue any of your guys' points whatsoever. But I feel like the story, the verve, the feeling you get, the metaphor, the fairy tale aspect of it hits it all so well that it puts it in the 3 range. But if it was going to get up to something in the 4s, it's got to fix everything that you guys have said. Like the Joy stuff is just wasted time. It's not funny. It's awkward. Kim needs to be in there more, and they need to develop that relationship or give her more to do or dump the boyfriend earlier and then have him come back in much more of a jealous rage, later on. That would make more sense because it'd give him more time to stew. And every time I watch this, I always forget that Edward kills him. And I think it's so hilarious that this teenage high school kid gets stabbed, thrown out of window, dies on the ground. A crowd surrounds him, and they're all like, okay, I'm going to go back to my home now. Hope somebody cleans this up. So, yeah, there's a lot wrong with it. But John, as you've said many times before, when the stuff that works well works really well, you can forgive a lot. And I think that's the story with me in Edward Scissorhands. So I give it 3.5.
I mean, again, on the relationship side, like Jack and Sally have a better relationship portrayed than this movie. And they're animated.
Because Sally has way more time.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. And she actually impacts the story and makes decisions. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Please go to thenerdparty.com for all of our backlogged episodes, as well as all of our shows. We got something for everyone. We've got something for every kind of nerd out there. We got Star Wars, Star Trek. We've got movies, TV, Babylon 5, Harry Potter, Doctor Who, stuff coming at you every single day of the week. John, where can we find you?
Oh, well, you can find me as Kessel Junkie, making ice sculptures on Twitter or Letterboxd, but, preferably Letterboxd. That's where I have the most fun. And you can find me co-hosting right here on the Nerd Party, a terrific little Star Wars show called Aggressive Negotiations, where we deep dive into the different sectors of Star Wars that sometimes get overlooked. And that's where you can find me. Darren, where can people find you out there in the Wild West of the internet?
I knew you were here, John, because it was snowing outside. They can find me at drsci-fi.com, as well as here on the network, talking Star Trek on City Alpha 3 or talking about being a maker on Maker's Method. What about you, Tristan?
Well, you can find me right here on the network at thenerdparty.com, just like Darren and John, where you can find me at Punch It or Second Contact, both Star Trek shows. And you can also find me at Nerd Nuptial, which is an archive show that I did with my wife that I'm very proud of. And next week, please be with us as we talk about another Tim Burton Christmas movie, Batman Returns from 1992. So please open the door to the House of Burton.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.